Well, thank you, Chair. I do want to start by congratulating you on becoming the chair of the Procedure and House Affairs Committee. I wonder if it's one of those things where when you're the new guy, you have to do the job that nobody else wants. But but no, in all seriousness, congratulations. And so there's some irony in where I am sitting in the room, because I am sitting in a seat that is normally where witnesses sit, because we have a large number of members. And I had anticipated that the next time I would be back at this committee might be in that role of a witness, because it was my question of privilege granted by the prima facie case of privilege by the Speaker that led to the referral to this committee on the matter of foreign interference. So I do want to just briefly share with committee members what happened to provoke this case, and hopefully it helps members to understand the importance of proceeding in the fashion proposed by my Conservative colleagues. So in 2021, 18 Canadian parliamentarians, we know now 18 Canadian members of Parliament, pardon me, not members of Parliament, 18 Canadian parliamentarians, including members of Parliament and senators, faced a cyber attack from what's known as APT-31, a China-based PRC-affiliated hacking outfit that was targeting specific legislators around the world because of their affiliation with an organization called the Interparliamentary Alliance on China, or IPAC. IPAC does incredible, effective work bringing together legislators from across the world and from different political traditions to work together on issues related to China. The IPAC model is that in every country where legislators are members, they have co-chairs from two different parties. So in this case, for instance, both John McKay and I serve as co-chairs and have been being able to work very, very collaboratively together, including in the context of raising this issue in the House. MP McKay and I, as well as 16 other parliamentarians, were subject to this cyber attack in 2021. We were not told about it. The cyber attack came to our attention because a few weeks ago, an unsealed indictment in the United States revealed that there had been this global attempt by APT-31 to target IPAC legislators, and this was the first time IPAC found out about it. So they followed up with the U.S. government saying, "Hey, it sure would have been nice if you told us." That our members and our organization were targeted by APT-31. And what ensued was some dialogue between the various organs of the U.S. government and the IPAC Secretariat, in which they identified that that they did become aware of this attack. They did disseminate information, but because of sovereignty concerns, it is not the policy of the FBI, for better or worse, to contact directly individuals in other countries that are subject to these kinds of attacks. Instead, it is their policy to disseminate this information through notifications to governments, and then the governments respond accordingly. In some cases, legislators were informed, and in some cases, legislators were not informed at the time that this information was received from the U.S. government. In Canada, we were not informed, so this information, the details of which were subsequently shared with the IPAC Secretariat. Mr. McKay and I were jointly briefed, followed by a briefing to members of other members of the IPAC membership who were affected, and we subsequently both raised a question of privilege now a week and a half ago, which was the first Monday back from a break week, during which we had received this briefing. So the question of privilege was raised. There were a number of other interventions, and the Speaker granted in a ruling last night that this did constitute a prima facie case of privilege. I presume, I hope that there is an appreciation here of the seriousness of the events that I've just described. what matters is the mechanism, the action, the fact that it was a cyber attack. But what matters more, I think, is the intention, the objective of the attack. This was a pixel reconnaissance attack. So what that means is it's kind of an introductory attack, a reconnaissance attack aimed at gathering initial information, which will then be used subsequently for further attacks. So those further attacks could take the form of attempted surveillance, disruption, identifying things that were involved, and perhaps identifying individuals that we are corresponding with and putting some pressure on them, or applying additional pressure or surveillance to those individuals that we're corresponding with. We don't really know what all the follow-up of these initial reconnaissance attacks were. And although the House of Commons has said that the attack was unsuccessful, they can't know that because it was not only parliamentary accounts that were targeted. In my case, my personal account was targeted, a personal email account that is not publicly available anywhere, and I still don't know how APT31 hackers got this information. So I was targeted at a personal, private place or context because of my parliamentary work. But the other issue is one MP in debate on this privilege motion yesterday in the House raised the fact that he had actually, his staff had actually been able to find in their email account that these emails and they were fake news emails. And I'm not making an editorial comment when I say fake news. They were actually someone pretending to be part of a news organization and was not in the way that we often see it happening, but in a more uncommon way, where they were identified as they were, and these fake news articles had pictures in them, and each of those pictures may have had 1 or 2 pixels on it that kind of opened up an access point into someone's computer and allowed them to gather more information. But the point I was making is just that one of the members during debate yesterday pointed out that his staff had been able to find these emails still in his account, which indicated that at least the emails did get through. So that raises some questions about whether we can be certain or not that there was an effective protection in the case of parliamentary accounts. But in any event, that doesn't apply to personal accounts, and in any event, that doesn't change the fact that people were targeted.
Specifically targeted, yep.
So this is the context, and I hope members appreciate the seriousness because of the nature of the attack, but also the motivation that informs it, which is to disrupt our parliamentary work. This is why it's not just an unfortunate event, but it is a question of parliamentary privilege, because our constitutional framework recognizes that we have critical jobs to do as members of parliament, as part of our democracy, and that those jobs were interfered with through a foreign actor, and that in any case where there is some interference with our ability to do our jobs, that constitutes a matter of privilege, and that Parliament prioritizes dealing with that, as certainly we have. So that kind of brings us up to where we were last night, the Speaker's ruling, and the subsequent debate that occurred, where many members made the point that it is an attack on our privilege, that there was this foreign interference in our democracy happening again, and that for the second time, the government failed to inform members of the fact that there was a threat to them or an attack on them by a foreign actor. Members will recall that this committee studied the issue of the threats against Michael Chong's family in detail, and there were threats against Michael Chong's family. What happened in that case was found to be a prima facie breach of privilege by the Speaker, and in the context of some of the conversation around that, the government issued a ministerial directive aimed at ensuring members would more likely be informed of threats against them. But still, in this case, that did not happen. Now, the events in the context of this hacking happened before the new ministerial directive came in place, but you would still expect that the ministerial directive would reasonably be interpreted. I hope that if there were threats that were made against members or attacks against members that are still relevant to their lives today, that in the context of the new directive, members would be informed. And I think perhaps one thing that can be looked at in this study is just getting some clarity around the fact that if there were threats that the government became aware of that started prior to that new directive that are still applicable to members of Parliament that in light of that new directive, members should certainly be informed. So it seems to be the case that in spite of some of the statements that were made, that there are still these outstanding issues of threats that have been made that may and likely do have ongoing relevance to members, which members have not been informed about. So this is what kind of is the critical issue going into this discussion: what happened, why it happened, what the motivation was, and how we respond. And I hope the response is for this committee to put together robust, detailed recommendations on how to ensure this never happens again, ensure that members of Parliament are informed, that in general, when people are subject to foreign interference threats, that they are informed, that there's not a hiding of information, rather that the information is given to those who need it, those who can then use that information to take steps to protect themselves. I do hope we also see action, by the way, on holding APT 31 accountable. One piece is protecting ourselves and addressing the privilege issues here. Another piece is the response to APT 31. I believe, and IPAC legislators across the world have called for the sanctioning of individuals affiliated with APT 31 involved in trying to attack our parliamentary institutions through hacking. We should obviously respond to those kinds of actions with strong sanctions. And I speculated last night that one of the reasons the government may not have wanted members of Parliament to be aware of what was happening is because informing members of Parliament would likely have led to calls for a strong response in particular, holding accountable those that were perpetrating this hacking. So this morning, there was an agreement in Parliament to move this issue quickly to this committee. There was a unanimous decision by the House of Commons to adopt my motion, which was in the context of the privilege question. My motion was that this matter be referred to this committee. And I think that, needless to say, that referral by the House on a matter of privilege is a very serious matter. There are many other issues that this committee could look at that are issues of great importance, naturally. But there are a limited number of matters that have been referred to this committee by the House, by unanimously members of Parliament from all parties saying that this is a pressing matter relating to the privileges of parliamentarians, and we need PROC to provide an answer in terms of what has happened and what can we and should we do going forward in response to that. And recognizing the electoral timeline, the election, if certain events remain in the trajectory they are in, we'll have an election next fall. Of course, in a minority parliament, an election can always happen sooner. And I would submit to you that given the importance of this matter, it's important for our democracy that there are some critical issues of foreign interference that need to be addressed and resolved prior to the next election. And one of them is the resolution of this matter of members of Parliament facing cyber attacks and being able to receive the information related to those attacks and protect themselves in the context of those attacks. And this is why Conservatives have moved an amendment to the existing study motion to emphasize that the study, the other study that has been proposed on an important subject matter, begin after the completion of this committee's work on foreign interference. I think that respects the mandate that this committee has, and actually that all parliamentary committees have, as creations of the House of Commons. That the House of Commons creates parliamentary committees. Their primary responsibility is not to envision themselves as a group of independent members of Parliament pursuing doing their own thing, so to speak. They shape their own agendas, generally speaking, but the exception is when they're given direction by the House, and their primary responsibility is to report to the House on the matters that they study. And the foreign interference issue is one that the Speaker has ruled on, that the House as a whole has unanimously pronounced itself on, and therefore it is an issue where the committee should prioritize reporting back to the House. I hope that as part of this study that the various members who are affected by this foreign interference issue, as well as senators, are given an opportunity to present. Some have not indicated publicly, but everyone impacted has been informed. And we need to hear about the decision not to inform members. Right. The justification that the government has used for not informing members is to say, well, we passed information along to certain officials within the House of Commons. Their argument is, well, I would say it admits more than it denies. The government admitted that they received this information from the FBI regarding attacks on members, and that they chose not to share it with members. And they said, to paraphrase the Parliamentary Secretary, something to the effect that, well, because of the separation of powers between the executive and the legislative, we decided to tell Parliament instead of to tell parliamentary officials instead of to tell members of Parliament. I am not aware of any tradition of legislative executive power separation that prohibits the executive from informing individual legislators of information that's relevant to them. Of course, the nature of our system is we have executive branch and we have a legislative branch, and those branches talk to each other, right? It happens every day in question period. It will happen shortly, and it happens in the form of informal conversations or cases where, if the government is working on pieces of legislation, they will inform members of certain things they're working on, certain intentions, et cetera. So it doesn't follow for me that somehow the separation of powers that should exist includes a prohibition on members of the executive or organs of the executive communicating with individual members of Parliament. I accept and I understand, of course, that the mandate of our security agencies has generally been to report to the government, not to report outside of government, But that makes the point all the more that it should have been a decision of a directive of government to say this is information critical to our democracy, and sharing that information allows members to protect themselves. And I'll just say in general, very often when it comes to foreign interference in general, this government always wants to hide information, even in cases where sharing information likely is an effective way of combating that interference. Someone once said sunlight is the best disinfectant. In the case of foreign interference, sometimes simply knowing that foreign interference is happening and knowing that particular messages, presentations emanate from foreign interference, sometimes just having that information out there helps to reduce the impact of that foreign interference. But this government, they look for every possible excuse not to share information, even if the national interest would actually be more clearly and directly advanced if that information was shared. So I maintain very strongly that the government should have shared this information with us, and it was disappointing to hear during debate last night the Parliamentary Secretary to the government House Leader again doubled down on basically saying, in spite of the Speaker's ruling, he didn't think the government did anything wrong. The Parliamentary Secretary's position, if it reflects the government, then the government's position as a whole is that the government did not do anything wrong, and that's a big problem because it was wrong for them not to inform us. I see Chair.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt you. You'll certainly maintain your spot in the speaking order should you choose to rejoin us at Proc when we convene again. Colleagues, we are about to be out of resources, so I am going to suspend this meeting, and we will gather again when we